Hello everybody, this is Brooke aka Supernatural Simmer, and today we are back at it with another speed build. This build is a colonial type. I'm pretty sure. I don't know too much about house types, so don't take my words too seriously when I say things like this, because I think this is a colonial type. I know the house next to it is, and I was basing this house off of the house next to it. Might be a colonial, might not. But I am working on a save for my Not So Berry Sims, and I am currently filling the Pancakes neighborhood with colonial style builds because I kind of thought it fit. And this is a 2-bedroom home that can fit 4 Sims. One of the bedrooms is for a toddler, and I was thinking either a child or a teen. As I said, I based the house off of the house next door, which that's going to be uploaded sometime soon as well. I think I'm on to furnishing. I think I've completely finished the outside and I just need to furnish. I think that might be all that's left. So at first when I was doing this house, I used white windows, which, while that's what I always use and I think it looks really nice, it didn't look close enough to the house next to it because I wanted everything in this neighborhood to be really matchy-matchy. So later I changed the windows from white to having the black shutters like the house next to it. And I used the columns from Get Famous on the porch. They're the same columns that I used on the other house, they're just a different swatch so that the brick could match. At the beginning of the build, the chimney was 1 tile wide, and I've seen a couple people do it and they can pull it off, but I could not, so I just shifted it to the side so it was like snug with the porch, and now it's 2 tiles wide and I think it looks really good. The backyard is kind of small, but I managed to fit a couple activities in there like gardening and a lounge chair. And now I'm figuring out the floor plan, which takes me forever because I couldn't figure out where the stairs would go, but I eventually put them in the kitchen, and you can see I'm trying to make it look a little bit better and shift it around a bit, but I just wound up backspacing and putting it all back to the way it was. And in the house, I went for a very neutral color scheme, a lot of whites and grays and blacks. Like, I used the same flooring that's on the house next door, which is the cats and dogs flooring, but I used it in a gray swatch, and I also added a closet in the bathroom because I needed a place for a closet, because I require those in my house, generally more than one. But I added some brick accents and then the tile for the bathroom, and I just did some very basic landscaping. It's really just the same landscaping that I always do with that beautiful hawthorn tree. I think that's the type of tree it is. But I love that tree. It is my favorite tree in game, and I will forever use that tree in every single one of my houses, except for maybe the ones in the desert, because that wouldn't make sense. And for the landscaping, I use some plants that I use in almost all of my builds, like those flowers and that bush and the grass, which I don't use in a lot of my builds, but I still really enjoy it because it just fills in the space nicely. And I lined the side of the picket fence with some lavender because I wanted some intentional landscaping. And now we're doing the backyard and we're putting in some activities, and I just put in what I normally did, like a barbecue and a trash can next to it because I always thought that was a little bit realistic, but I did put a basketball hoop on the chimney, which I don't think I've ever seen that in a house. I always see them like above the garages. But since we don't have garages in The Sims 4, I figured that was a good place to put it, but I don't know if it's very realistic. And then now I'm doing something that I forget about in like almost all of my builds, where I put a light on the outside of the doors, which I don't know why I always forget about that, but I guess this might just be because my Sims never actually go outside. Like, I think the only time my Sims ever go outside is when the toddlers are building their movement skill with the toddler slide. But now I am doing the kitchen, and I made the sink a standalone sink because I couldn't really figure out a good place for it, because at this point I didn't think I was going to have any more counter space, but then I add an island so that we have some seating space because I did not manage to fit a dining room in here. We just had some decorations like a bread box and the cork board, and I thought they would have a cat if they were to have a pet, so I put the cat's food bowl on the counter because I always thought that was a really cute feature, even though it I don't think it ever really worked for me. And then I figured out the tiling situation for the bathrooms because I forgot to do that earlier. And now we're doing the entryway, and I use this side table from Cats and Dogs, which I really, really like. And we're finishing up the entryway. I use this thing from Fitness Stuff, which I'm pretty sure that's a towel and not a jacket or anything, but oh well. I used it anyway because I thought it looked nice. And now we're doing the living room, and I use these couches from Get Famous for the first time in a while. I used to use them in the Mint Swatch all the time because I restarted the Not So Berry Challenge like 6 times, so I was making a lot of mint houses. But I use these couches, which I really like. And I kept up with the neutrals throughout the house. I actually think I might have used less than 10 like colorful items, including those 3 paintings on the wall, which, by the way, those are adorable. I love those. Also in the living room, I used that zebra print rug from Get Famous, which kind of gave me a vague idea for who I think this guy is. I thought they were a guy from the get-go because I already have someone living in this house, but I made the house for him to live in, but not for him in particular, if you know what I mean. But the guy who I imagined actually lived here probably inherited it from a family member because the exterior did not come from this guy at all. But other than that, I think he's a fashion designer, which is purely spurred on by the idea of that rug, by the way. But as I was decorating the house, I noticed I had an extra kids' room, which spurred on the rest of his story. And so I thought this was a fashion designer. I don't think he has any kids of his own, but I think he has a sister and she has children. And so he has an extra room for the kids, and he's like really sweet to them, and he loves them, and he loves his sister's kids, and he's like the world's best uncle, and he's super flamboyant, and they love him. And I think the sister's kids are 2 little boys. I think so, but they absolutely adore their uncle, whose name is probably like Francis or Beau, because those seem like more feminine names to me, because since he's a fashion designer and just the way I imagined him in my head, he kind of gives me like, Izzy Fabulous and Morgan Ember kind of vibes, but a little bit more of a family man. So we are doing the kids' room, and I thought one of the kids might be a little bit emo, but the other's a toddler, so they don't have much of a personality yet. I'm finishing up the build, and we are moving on to the screenshots, so don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you soon. Goodbye!